All right, I think we're live. Yes, we are live for sure this time. All right. We love technical difficulties here and there, but that's all right. As long as it's only the YouTube stream and not the actual game, that's what matters.
Exactly right.
All right, we're here. We're in Star Wars Outlaws. Today I'm here with Michael Wilding. He's from NVIDIA. He is their technical marketing and sales rep that works directly with ASUS. Do you want to give yourself a quick intro?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks for having me on, Brandon. My name is Michael Wilding. I work for NVIDIA. As Brandon mentioned, I am a technical marketing rep for ASUS. I also work with a lot of our system builder partners and our board partners. And so, again, thanks for having me on the stream.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you for the wealth of knowledge I know you'll be able to share with us today. And I'm looking forward to getting into learning more about Star Wars Outlaws, the world that it is, and all the fun RTX technologies inside of it.
Absolutely.
So let's see, we're right here. And before we get in here, I'm going to share this with Mike here. Ooh. Oh yeah, you guys can see all that. Whoops. So we will go into game really quick.
Great.
And then all right, and you can see that, Mike?
I can. Yep,
All
I can
right,
see the screen.
perfect. So go here. Beautiful. Resume that. Let's go inside.
Yeah, it's a great looking game. I think for those of you joining and for those of you who are maybe not familiar with Star Wars Outlaw, this is obviously a brand new game, just came out within the past week. The timeline this game is set in is essentially right before Return of the Jedi and right after The Empire Strikes Back. And so the main character in this game is Kay Vess, and she's kind of portrayed as like a young scoundrel. And I think the objective of this game is for her to kind of create this team and do this heist in order to essentially pay off this large crime syndicate. So it's a pretty interesting game. It's an open world game. It uses the Snowdrop engine, which is an engine that was also used in Tom Clancy's Division 2, and then the more recent Avatar game, Frontiers of Pandora. So it's a really good engine. It's got a lot of our tech in it, obviously, which we'll talk to here momentarily. But overall, it's a very beautiful game, and it runs very well on modern hardware.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now we are running this on an RTX 4090, Tough Gaming RTX 4090 system. We have everything maxed out completely. We have all of our shaders, all of our different graphic settings to higher, ultra. That includes all of our different ray tracing as well. So we get to see all this dynamic lighting going on, all these beautiful sort of fidelity we have here.
Yeah, the game has a lot of NVIDIA tech in it. I can kind of go through it line by line a little bit for those who might not be familiar. The first of which is NVIDIA Reflex. This is a technology that essentially reduces overall system latency. The good thing about this technology is it actually works all the way back to our Maxwell version of graphics cards. So think GTX 900 series, right? So it actually works all the way back to cards basically from 2015. This is a really popular technology in competitive games, but we're also seeing it a lot more now in games that use ray tracing and games that do require a lot of horsepower to run. And that's because it kind of helps claw back some of the added latency that you might see with things like ray tracing in some other technologies. And so really overall just helps makes the game more responsive, whether you're using a mouse and keyboard or using a controller, just makes the game more responsive as a whole. So it's a really cool technology to see within this game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm someone who loves to play, these single player games on like my TV. It's a big old 65-inch
Yeah.
TV, but that has a lot of latency. It's not a gaming sort of like ROG one, unfortunately, but with that extra latency and getting that all back with NVIDIA Reflex is really nice. Being able to sit on my couch, play on the controller, and not have to worry like, oh, I'm gonna hit the stick and then it'll turn. I don't want to have that
Yeah, exactly.
that waiting moment and that motion
Yeah.
sickness.
Yeah, it definitely helps with just reducing overall system latency and again making the game more responsive. So definitely helps give you the edge, and then helps games like this single player game just feel more fluid, right? Um, and then we have a number of DLSS technologies in this game. We actually have everything that we have to offer within this one game. So we have DLSS, what we call super resolution. We have DLSS frame generation, and then we have DLSS ray reconstruction. So I know that's a lot of tech to talk about, but we'll kind of go through it line by line. So
Yep.
the first one is the one that most people are very familiar with at this point, it's in close to about 500 games at this point. Um, and so it's called DLSS Super Resolution. And how this works is essentially we render the game engine or we render the actual game at a lower resolution, and then we upscale the game to your monitor's native resolution using AI. So the AI kind of helps fill in the gaps. So in this game right now, you're running it at 4K, so that's your monitor's native resolution. Then we're also rendering it in what we call DLSS Super Resolution Performance mode. And so what we're actually doing is we're only asking the GPU or the game engine itself to render the game at 1080p, and then we're using that AI algorithm, DLSS, to upscale it to 4K. And so in that process, we're actually seeing, if we were to run this game natively at 1080p on a 4K panel, probably wouldn't look very good, right? We look pretty blurry. Just wouldn't be an overall great experience. And so with this technology, it makes it actually look like 4K with the performance of 1080p. So it's kind
Everything
of
is looking super sharp right now, Again,
yeah,
we're on this
super crisp.
27-inch 4K monitor, which is for me, I like that really dense pixel density. And seeing
Yeah,
it
super
here,
dense.
it's so gorgeous.
Is this an OLED panel that you guys have to offer, or is this a
This is not
IPS?
one of our OLEDs, unfortunately. I do love those panels, though. If you
Yeah,
can get
they're
one of
gorgeous.
them, we have a couple of them that just came out, including we have this new 27-inch 480 hertz OLED display for
Wow.
those who want to be competitive but still
Yep.
have that glossy, just beautiful panel.
Yeah, I've actually had the opportunity to see one of those live at QuakeCon. It's jaw dropping. It's jaw dropping, shall I say? I definitely I want one for myself now. So
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the great thing about them, right, is all these high-end monitors, we make sure they have NVIDIA G-Sync, so you make sure, again, that performance just super crisp.
that fluidity as well. Yeah, exactly. But cool. So the other DLSS technology that I wanted to quickly mention was DLSS 3. So
Mm,
this is also known as frame generation. This again uses AI, and really what it does is it basically creates a brand new frame between an existing frame and a future frame,
mm.
right? So it uses AI to essentially for the game engine. It basically uses AI for the graphics card to render a brand new frame that the game engine isn't even aware of, right? So we're actually using this. We're generating this on the graphics card, and we're implementing in between a current frame and a future frame. And so the purpose of that is obviously give you more frames per second, right? Which increases the fluidity of the game, makes the animations a lot smoother, and so obviously it increases the performance quite drastically, right? For a game like this where you might be running, let's say, 90 FPS. When you turn off frame generation, you almost reduce your frame rate by half, right? So you go down to that 50 FPS mark,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's a pretty substantial increase in performance when you enable it.
Yeah, let's try that out. So right now we are getting about 70 to 75 FPS depending on what's going on. That's again, we're got everything just maxed out to the bones, but we go into these settings here, go to video, scroll down, and then we turn off frame generation, apply that, and then we leave. Now we'll see drop down to
Yeah,
about 36, 37, 40 FPS, which is it's
yeah.
smooth enough to play, but especially when I was just
Not
playing earlier at 70 and even up to 90, it's like it's not smooth enough. And that's
no.
why again, all these different settings with DLSS really just makes it such an amazing experience for gamers where you don't
Yeah,
really
it's
have to
really.
compromise.
I agree. I mean, it's one of these technologies where in a game like this, where there's so much ray tracing going on, uh, it requires a lot of computational power in order to drive this game. Having frame generation really just helps claw back some of that performance, right? So obviously, when you have everything fully maxed out, your 30 FPS, you enable it, you're back up to 60 or 70, and the game is just a lot smoother and more enjoyable to play. So definitely a much needed technology with games like this.
Hmm.
Um, so the next DLSS technology we have is what we call DLSS 3.5, and that's called ray reconstruction. And when you're ray tracing a game right before the final image, we typically do something called a denoising pass because as you're casting rays into the scene,
Hmm.
um, you don't see this on your end, but there's a lot of noise generated by that casting of frames during the ray tracing pass. And so typical games that have ray tracing use something called hand-tuned denoisers, so the developer can go in there and tune it and ensure that the game, the final image looks good enough,
Hmm.
um, when you're ray tracing. What ray reconstruction does, it doesn't wait till the very end of the frame. It basically does it at the same. It does the denoising at the same pass as the AI upscaling, right? So
Mm,
as DLSS super resolution is doing that upscaling, it's also doing ray reconstruction at the same time. And the benefit of doing that is that we're able to kind of maintain some of the visual quality that we expect to see.
mm,
I can kind of back up just a little bit by basically with these hand-tuned denoisers. Sometimes there's some artifacts. Sometimes in things like reflections or shadows, you might see a little bit of artifacts, maybe a little bit of ghosting, or
mm,
maybe the reflection isn't quite high quality. Maybe it's a lower resolution looking. Ray reconstruction kind of claws all that back and makes it look higher fidelity, crisper, less ghosting, less artifacts, and so it really adds a lot to the game by having that AI driven reconstruction technique or denoising pass, shall I say.
mm.
So it's only available in a couple games right now. This is obviously one of them, but we'll start seeing it more and more in future games. And it's one of these technologies that just it really sets us apart from a lot of the other vendors out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just looking at these shadows here, right? I'm so used to games where like you get these jagged, sort of like pixely shadows, but here it's just super smooth, super just like blown out in a way that it looks so natural.
It does, yeah, and that's actually it's a good segue into the next technology that's in this game, which is called NVIDIA RTX Dynamic Illumination, and so
Mm,
the short the short acronym for it is RTX DI. This is kind of it's one part of what we call full ray tracing or path tracing, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with. This is just again just one part of it. It's an SDK, but what it essentially does is it looks at some of the most important lights in the scene, like light samples in the scene, and it basically starts to render them physically accurate. And what you normally see on your end is really accurate shadows. So you can go into a scene like this where the shadows itself are super soft. If you were to kind of zoom in on her face and just kind of see how some of the lighting reacts, reacts like it would in real life, right? So you see, like, she's not facing the light, and you can see how it's reflecting, or how the shadows are reacting on her garb,
hmm.
and even behind her. It's just it's super accurate, and it really replaces the embedded ray tracing in the game. So this game has an option to ray trace shadows, but RTX DI is just it's one up, right? It's one level above it. It looks incredible. And I was telling you earlier, Brandon, that I think really what if I can kind of make it into one word,
Hmm.
right? I would just say depth. It adds a lot of depth to the game, right? So when you're playing the game, it just you see shadows cast on everything. They're accurate, they're true to life,
Hmm.
and it just makes the game feel living and breathing. It just adds so much depth to the game. It's just really, really beautiful when you have this enabled.
Yeah, I mean, with an open world type of game and story-driven game, you want something where you're just that immersed, right? You want to feel like, oh, I'm here, I'm in it. And with Star Wars, especially the story and all of that that we've grown up on at this point, it's just you want to be in that world and all these different things really amplify that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, and this game, runs well on various hardware. This is the cool thing about this game is it has various levels of ray tracing. It has,
Hmm.
ray tracing for shadows, for reflections, for global illumination. And so if you have a DXR compatible GPU, so think, an RTX 20 series or above,
Hmm.
you can take advantage of all these goodies that are in this game at playable frame rates, more importantly, right? So, even if you have something like an older card, like a 2060, you can still enjoy this game at 1080p with some ray tracing enabled with DLSS super resolution, and ray reconstruction, and still have a great experience overall. So obviously, the best experience is going to be with the RTX 40 series because then you can
Hmm.
enable every option and start to crank things up. But again, the overall experience with everything enabled in this game looks really, really good.
Yeah, absolutely. I was playing this on an ROG Nook earlier, so that had a 4070 discrete GPU and seeing how it can
Yes.
perform, even trying to max that out, I was getting like around 30 FPS with frame generation, which was super impressive on a 1440p monitor, and again, it's such
Yeah.
a small little system that's almost smaller than one of our graphics cards.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and that was probably was that with max settings as well, or
Yeah, that was all maxed out,
yeah.
I just wanted to see what it could do.
Yeah. Yeah, the beautiful thing about that obviously is that, some people might be like, "Oh, 30 FPS, that's not really why I'm gaming on a PC," right? So they can obviously
Hmm.
dial settings back, still get great results and still have a great experience, right? There's a number of ways that you can do that. There's plenty of articles out there, plenty of videos out there that have great optimization guides. Or if you don't want to watch any of that, you can download our new NVIDIA app, or you can use our existing GeForce experience and then just use the one-click optimize button, right? So you just hit that
Nice.
one button and it will essentially optimize the game settings, so you'll have a great experience regardless of what your hardware is. So that's something that anybody can check out and utilize. Our new NVIDIA app is fantastic. It's being updated constantly. It doesn't require a login, so you can go and download the new NVIDIA app. It works a lot like our GeForce experience. You're also going to start seeing more of our control panel options be integrated into the NVIDIA app. And so far, everybody that I talked to that's used it just absolutely loves it. So it's a great experience overall, and definitely would encourage folks here on the stream to download it and check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Let's go into some of these settings. Let's we talk
Sure.
about how this game is, accessible to not just, the 4090 users like I am right now, but to anybody using just NVIDIA graphics cards. So let's go in here, and we'll start off with DLSS and again some of these other features, how we can adjust these in ways that we can get both performance and quality.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually thought you were running the performance upscaler, but it looks like here you're actually running quality. So what that means. So when you enable DLSS in this case, and you have the option to choose the upscaler quality. So with upscaler quality on the quality setting, you are essentially rendering 67% of that 4K resolution, right?
Yeah.
So the actual graphics card is rendering, the game engine's rendering 67%, and then it's using AI to kind of fill in the remainder of those gaps, right? So typically with 4K, we recommend for people to use the performance setting for the upscaler. And so what that does is that it actually renders the game at 1080p, and then it uses NVIDIA DLSS Super Resolution to upscale it to 4K.
Nice.
Right, so it's a perfect 4x upscale. So basically, you're going to get the performance of like you're running the game at 1080p, but then when you're looking at the monitor, you're going to potentially see or really see the fidelity of 4K. Right? So it's really, really game changing in my opinion. It really helps, obviously, with the overall performance, and the image quality looks pretty much the same.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Maintaining that sharpness is just so key to a lot of these story-driven games.
absolutely. So there's another mode called biased mode. Um, there's biased and then there's fixed mode. I usually encourage people to use fixed mode that, basically uses DLSS with the traditional scaling percentages, like we talked about, where if you're at, 4K and you're going from performance to you're going from 1080p to 4K. If you're using the performance setting, if you're in 4K and you use the quality setting, you're essentially rendering the game at 1440p and upscaling it to 4K. So with fixed mode, you're going to get the best performance. There's another mode called biased mode. Don't really see a big difference with that if you're not on a 4K panel, because what it does is it dynamically renders the game at 67% of 1440p up to 4K, right? So you're kind of getting a mix of quality depending on your performance of it. But overall, it kind of lowers the performance a little bit, and you don't see the real the results from it unless you have a 4K panel. So again, keep it on fixed mode, and you get a great experience overall.
Nice. Yeah, let's apply these really quick. And then before, right, we were getting around like 70, 75 FPS. And
Yeah,
now with these new settings, right, once we start moving around, we're already jumping up to the 90s, We're
in the
getting
90s,
a
yeah.
lot of FPS, a lot to work with, especially once you go into those more dynamic, like gunfights and all that, where you might lose a couple frames, but so long as you're maintaining over, that 60 sort of threshold, you'll get that
Yeah.
smooth sort of feeling throughout.
Absolutely, yeah. So, this is a pretty demanding part of the game. So obviously it's an open world game, right? So there's some sections that will run a little worse, some sections that will run better. There's a lot of variance there. But, again, if you want to play this game with everything fully maxed out, you're going to want to use frame generation, you're going to want to use ray reconstruction, and obviously you're going to want to use super resolution. So, but yeah, the game is gorgeous, as you can see. It's just the depth with RTX DI enabled. It's just, man, it's so good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just seeing again all this dynamic lighting going on, seeing it work between not only your character, but obviously the NPCs and the environment,
Yes.
it's amazing to see.
Yeah, if you actually go up to the that C3PO droid up there, or
Yeah,
the
yeah.
C3PO lookalike, if you pop into photo mode, which is in the options, you can kind of get a good it kind of slows things down, right? I mean, when in games like this, we're all guilty of it. We kind of just run by stuff. We don't really pay attention to some of the details, but I mean, you really have to give the developer a lot of praise here because of what they've done um, with some of these models. They just the character quality models, the detail, um, the texture quality. It looks really good. I know in this section here, it looks like the depth of field might be messing with it a little bit,
Mm.
but I mean, if you go to the droid right there to the next to him on the right hand side, just the quality itself and the textures looks really good. And overall, I mean, the game is just it's a really really pretty game.
Oh yeah.
If you're a brave person, there's actually a secret setting in this game. Everything is set to ultra right now, but if you want to enable what they call the outlaw setting, you can go and before you start the game, you can start it with basically hyphen and then unlock max settings. And then you can go in there and see what this game is really capable of as far as its fidelity, ray tracing. I mean, it will run it fully maxed out. And a lot of cards are going to struggle with that clearly
Hmm.
because it's basically ramping everything up to volume 11. But it's absolutely gorgeous when you enable that setting.
Yeah, you will need one of those ROG Matrix cards, really utilize something
Yes,
to that extent. But
yes,
yeah,
you
just
will.
going through here in photo mode, you can see all this cool stuff going on. Again, some of these reflections here on the droid, just seeing how the light sort of shines on here, these very realistic sort of shadows in the way, because of the distance, it softens it up a bit, and it's just, yeah, it's so gorgeous to see.
Yeah, and again, the depth is kind of the best way that I can explain it when you have RTX DI enabled. Again, you can do side by side shots. You can show the differences between lighting and shadows, and it's great when you're looking at still shots, right? But as you're playing the game, it just adds like this element of depth that it's hard to it's hard to portray it
Hmm.
unless you're physically playing it, right?
Yeah.
But once you do, and you're like, wow, this game is just it looks really good. So right there, a perfect example. Just there's a lot of depth of field obviously going on, so the background's going to be a little bit blurry because it's
Hmm.
focusing on those characters or NPCs, and so even in photo mode, the depth of field will kind of make things look a little off. But overall, it's just man, it's a really really pretty game.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, for anyone who hasn't picked up this game already and you're looking to upgrade your PC, the perfect combo for that is, picking up one of our graphics cards that is part of this game bundle, a 4070 and up, I believe. We'll have
It is,
eligible
yeah.
graphics cards like this giant ROG Strix 4080 I have in hand right now on stream. And you can get this game along with a new PC upgrade and really enjoy all these different features we've been talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great time. We have the Star Wars Outlaw bundle going on right now. So as Brandon alluded to, pick up a 4070 or higher and enjoy the game, right? We typically recommend 4070 class cards for 1440p gaming. And
Hmm.
then if you want to play at 4K, 4080 Super or 4090 are great cards for that resolution.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I've been loving these new super cards that have been come out as well. Just the 4000 series in general. I gamed a lot on my 3080 before switching to a 4080, and
Mhm.
uh, it's not a huge upgrade in terms of FPS depending on what title, but the power efficiency has made my life a lot better. Paying for my electric bill and not having to worry about my gaming PC adding extra jumps to that. So. Uh,
Yeah, it's definitely a big difference there. I think in raster games, it's about a 50% jump performance
mhm.
wise. But then obviously, as you start, going and adding different ray tracing effects, you can even see a
Yeah,
large performance gap, right? So then you have you can obviously experience DLSS three frame generation
yeah.
with
Hmm.
40 series, and so yeah, it's just with a game like this, it's a pretty large difference in performance and just the overall experience.
Hmm.
So if you have any 40 series graphics card, if you have a 4060, you can play this game and enjoy all of these effects. You might have to dial some of the settings down, if you're playing at 1080p or so, dial down some of the settings, but you're still going to have a great experience and you're going to be able to enable all this cool tech that we just talked about.
Mm. Yeah, so I think that about covers a lot of what we're going over today, a lot of different technology. Anything that we missed that you can think about?
No, I think we covered everything. Again, we just to kind of reiterate, we talked about NVIDIA Reflex. We talked about all the versions of DLSS. We have DLSS Super Resolution. We have
Hmm.
DLSS Frame Generation. And then we have DLSS Ray Reconstruction. I know that's kind of a lot to think about, right? But, we're going to continue working on these technologies, making them better, adding to them. And so it's really exciting time right now for DLSS and AI in general for gaming. And then, this is one of the first games where we've seen, RTX DI separately, right? Again, I was talking about it earlier. Usually you see this in games that are full ray tracing or full path tracing, right? Usually you'll see a collection of RTX DI and then RTX GI. This game we're just doing DI, but overall it makes the game look incredible. And it's definitely, I hope to see this technology in more games in the future.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, seeing again like the this feature here that I think I forgot to mention too is the RTX direct lighting, and seeing again we can dial this up and down, and we can really experience that for the entire 40 series of graphics cards, seeing all these different fun and just gorgeous forms of fidelity in here. And within the game too, we can see our VRAM usage because that's so important for gamers nowadays is knowing just how much we need and how much is being utilized for by these games.
Absolutely, yeah, it's great they have that. I really like the fact that they have a nice description within the graphics setting and menu, kind of showing you or telling you about what each is, what it does. Then you can kind of see on the fly what the VRAM impact is as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but yeah, I think that about covers everything. Thank you so much to everybody who joined. And again, don't forget if you're looking to upgrade your PC, grab yourself a 4070 or higher so you can get this game as well and really enjoy all the things we talked about today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me again, Brandon, and thanks for everybody who joined the stream.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michael. And don't forget to follow our socials, ASUS North America, ASUS Graphics North America, and ROG North America. We have some graphics card giveaways that we want to be doing pretty soon, so watch out for all that.
Nice.
All right, see you guys.